So in Los Angeles right now, Los Angeles where I live, there are several very exciting new companies that are growing at extremely rapid clip. And one of them is here to talk to us right now today. And may I introduce our next speaker, Philip DeBevoise. Come on up, Philip. Welcome to Cannes. Please have a seat. So, Philip, you're
It is bright.
yeah, it's bright. You need sunglasses up here. It's Cannes. Of course, you need sunglasses all the time. Philip is the president and co-founder of Machinima. Machinima is one of Los Angeles' most exciting new companies. And so, let me start out with a really simple question, which is, tell me, what is Machinima?
Well, Machinima means machine cinema, machine animation, and it defined an animation movement that started about 10 years ago, where gamers, who are these emerging filmmakers around the world, were creating original content using these game engines. So they were creating original comedies and shorts using games like Halo and Call of Duty and things like that.
Right, so like a teenager would use Halo to render the cartoon, to render the animation.
So they would create new stories,
So
original
you didn't
scripts.
need to know how to program animation or use some sort of thing like Maya, some complex 3D
Absolutely,
animation.
it was
tool.
real-time puppeting. Sort of puppeteering using these game engines.
And then they would drop in the voices on top of that.
Exactly, we write original scripts, and they were uploading it to machinima.com, which was this, in a sense, this global theater for this emerging filmmaking community. My brother and I saw this, and we thought there might be an interesting opportunity to almost create like a new MTV for this gaming generation.
Cool.
So we acquired machinima.com, and soon after actually moved to create a YouTube channel to sort of host this content and move from an environment where we're actually letting anybody upload videos to an imitation only of the best filmmaking talent.
Yeah, do you groom talent? Do you find great young animators and filmmakers and invite them into the system?
Yeah, right now today we have about 4,000 directors from all over the world who are producing content for us on a daily basis on an exclusive manner. So we've built a really powerful incubation platform for original IPs.
And how does somebody go about doing that? Is there a submission process that they would follow? Like, would they go to machinima.com and find some way to submit a film?
Well, actually, we have a very proactive system where we have a team of about 40 people who...
So you find them?
Yes. We go out and we found them and then work with them. We support them. We finance a lot of the activities, a lot of the series. And we have an incredible platform because we can actually test things in real time. Somebody will create a short, we'll put it online, see the immediate reaction in terms of views and comments, and can iterate that to turn it into a series and other things.
Oh, so this is exactly what Cindy was just talking about, where it's the fast twitch reflex of the internet. You put up a video, you see immediately if people are liking it or not.
Right.
And if they do, then you order more episodes.
Right, and they're also working collaboratively online from all over the world. So
right on.
that's kind of interesting.
Cool. Should we take a look at some of the films that you're making? So you've evolved a lot in the last 5 years.
Yeah, we went from actually showcasing this content, which was mostly animated content, to actually then showcasing content from video games, working with publishers directly, to creating our own shows that were about the world of video games. And now we've moved into the next layer, which is what is the content that appeals to men 13 to 34.
Oh, right on. Okay, so you've identified an audience with the existing kind of crowdsourced content that you had, and now you're catering to that audience. You're developing original material specifically for this.
Right, so we said, what else does a core male 13 to 34 really like?
And some of these episodes, some of these programs are really sophisticated. Receiver, to me, looked like a television show.
Well, Receiver was actually sponsored by Motorola. They put up $1.5 million to actually produce that series.
Fantastic. Let's take a look. Hey, Bruno, can you roll the videotape, please? Okay, we're going to take a look at Machinima.
Sure. I think there's audio.
Audio. Crank it.
You're a writer, aren't you?
Woke up in the woods.
Sometimes staying out here just gets into your head.
There's something up with Tommy. Let's say it was the UFOs. You think the government would be able to keep something like that a secret?
There has been a zombie outbreak in LA.
Rapidly decaying epidermis, milky white pigment in the eyes. You said he tried to bite you?
Got blew Marcy's head off with my flare gun.
That's awesome.
We are going to my house. The only way we're going to survive this is if we have a big enough group.
Just leave Sonya in there?
She shouldn't even be there.
Do we get Kano?
We have enhanced speed by implementing a lighter alloy.
I wish to see these improvements in a practical setting.
That's a cool reel. So you've come a long way in a few years.
Yeah, it's been interesting. 2011 for us was a year of testing sort of these, different type of formats in terms of, sci-fi with receiver and
Little
action.
horror, gruesome violence.
Yes, comedy, things like that.
Everything designed to appeal to young men.
Exactly, and the response was amazing. I mean, the Mortal Kombat series that you saw generated 56 million views and about 38 million viewers.
Wow.
So around the world.
A global audience of 38 million. That's great.
Yeah, and that's the power of the platform of being on YouTube. You know,
Right.
today we have an audience of about 166 million viewers every month, serving about 1.5 billion video views a month.
Those are amazing numbers. Bruno, can you bring up the web page? Because let's make sure the audience doesn't miss that. Look at these figures here. So this is the homepage for Machinima. Last year you showed 11 billion videos.
Yes.
In February, 1.4 billion videos
Correct.
served, and here 166 million unique viewers. These are numbers that any broadcast network would absolutely drool to be able to boast about, certainly with their online presence. How is it that you were able to achieve this so quickly? What is the secret ingredient there?
Well, I think it's a combination of the platform,
Yes.
being on YouTube, which is both not only a distribution, but inherently a marketing platform because it allows for sharing of videos and really building audience. I think there's a combination of being very focused. Our focus was males, 13 to 34, who were part of this sort of this gaming generation, this gaming culture, which is really beyond just people who play games now. It's really about that kind of voice of that core 13 to 34-year-old male. And so the programming expanded to really cater that audience. And then actually it's also been our strategy of working with these channel partners around the world, so which came from the early days of actually having these filmmakers, gamers, be invited in to be part of a network. So we have about 4,000 channels who are part of our network and growing.
A channel would be someone who's a creator who
Who's a
also
creator.
has their own distribution point, so they can embed the YouTube clip and show it on their website.
Exactly, and they have their own followers and subscribers and so on. And so that has allowed us to really scale at a pretty exponential rate.
Oh, so if you're a producer, if you're an individual creator of content for Machinima, you have to also be a promoter. You have to be using
Absolutely.
social media. You have to have your own web destination. And
Right.
do you measure that as well? You measure the impact of each producer?
Oh, absolutely. And we work with them where if we want to premiere a new show, we will work with them to make sure that they're promoting it too. And vice versa, we're working with them on a daily basis to kind of develop their own programming, which we subsidize, and then also will feature and promote. So we're creating new stars on the network.
Right on. And so part of the benefit of being a member of the network, if you will, is you're going to get the promotional support, like kind of the cross-promotional support
Right.
of the existing programming and the existing reach that
Correct.
Machinima has.
Correct.
Do the individual producers also cross-promote each other?
Yes, we actually work with them to make sure that we actually are creating events where they can meet and share and collaborate. Clearly, we're always in the middle of trying to put them together and subsidizing the shows. And
So that's actually a cool idea. So you're a network, but you're not like a traditional broadcast network where you have towers and spectrum and you're broadcasting out a signal. You're more of a two-way network where you're connecting individual people together, and each person contributes something to the puzzle, right? They contribute content, they contribute some promotion, they contribute a destination and an audience that they've already got. Oh,
yes,
that's
and
quite cool.
we're both kind of a studio model and traditional, like at Warner Brothers Television, Lionsgate
Well,
Television.
you're incubating new ideas,
Incubating new daily shows
seed
daily
funding.
basis. Right, as well as also being a more of a network in a sense of actually being a place to distribute and showcase content. And the ability to be on YouTube allows us to be global instantaneously. When we want to put up a video, it can be seen all over the world, or we can geo-block it, we can geo-target ads, and we've done that with a lot of campaigns where people will come to us and provide us, assets, whether it be videos or advertising that we can cater and tailor and as well as and geo-target for.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that, because that I think is one of the most interesting things that you've achieved. So many companies that are experimenting with the internet find the international audience is challenging for them.
Right.
ComScore doesn't measure it quite as accurately as we'd wish, so your measurement statistics sometimes don't serve you well there. If you're a US-based company, frankly, most of the advertisers don't care about the international audience, so it doesn't count to your total numbers. You may have even seen that sometimes when when the Machinima metrics are written about in the US trade, sometimes they'll only count the United States
Correct,
audience. They ignore everybody else. But that's quite a large percentage. That's almost 40% of your audience, isn't it?
Yeah, well, 40% of our audience is actually in Europe, about 50% is in North America, and about 10% the rest of the world. But the numbers we have, for example, in Canada, we reach 70% of all males 13 to 34 are watching our network.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So for an advertiser, for some advertisers, you're a really efficient way for them to reach that global audience. But that's not traditionally how advertisers have bought media. Typically they would roll out, if they have an international campaign, they'd roll it out territory by territory, and maybe in a different cycle in a different part of the world, a different month or a different week when they'd want to roll it out. So what you just mentioned is that you can work with a global advertiser to roll out new programming and geo-block it so that it's available on the day and date that that advertiser wants to connect with the audience.
Exactly. So we've done that with a number of different advertisers. We actually have had global campaigns, like Xbox as an example, where they provide us content, for different countries with advertisement for different countries that we can sort of geo-target and roll out whenever they want it. So it creates a very compelling story for advertisers to work, with a one-stop sort of solution for a global distribution of their campaign. We've also had companies like, television networks like AMC provide us original series that they've created digitally as marketing tools for some of their shows, like The Walking Dead.
Right on.
And they came to us with the digital series and advertisers, in that case Toshiba and Pizza Hut, to actually try to generate views for this series. They generate about 1 million views on AMC.com with a lot of heavy promotion. We generate almost 6 million views in about 2 weeks for them for that series.
That's amazing. So that's a great example of a traditional media company using the web to drive audience back to television.
Absolutely.
But they're taking advantage of your global reach to make people aware.
And beyond, right now we're talking to a lot of different television networks and studios and digital groups there about co-financing, co-development of original series. You saw probably next episode of Bite Me, which is a series that we did, a zombie comedy set in LA. We did as a pilot the first season, and it generated about 15 million views in the first 4 weeks, about 10 million viewers. And for season 2, actually, we did a co-financing deal with Lionsgate. So it's also playing on FearNet, and we're looking to maybe develop into sort of other type of content.
And Lionsgate seems like the perfect partner. So, one of the things that's happening in the motion picture business right now is that the motion picture companies are so targeted on teenage boys as the one demographic that will reliably leave the house to go to the movie theater, to go to the Cineplex and watch a film. And they're struggling to find a way to promote their films. There's no great way to reach that audience, or I should say, there was no great way to reach that audience of teenage boys until Machinima came along. So I've talked to a number of studios who think you guys are the greatest promotional partner they've ever found, because you speak directly to those young men that are willing to leave the house and go to a movie theater.
Right.
And so the great big action pictures, the superhero pictures, and the Transformer-style films, you're the logical place for them to debut that content and to market it and to do promotion there.
Well, we did a recent campaign for G.I. Joe with Paramount. They gave us a trailer to release globally. It was the first time we've ever done that as an exclusive. And they challenged us to generate about 1.5 million views in 48 hours. We generated about 4.5 million views for that trailer, and about 8 million by the end of the first 5 days. So now we have a lot of studios coming to us say, look, we were going traditional iTunes or other kind of platforms to release a trailer, but we need really a place that can actually, distribute it globally and generate the promotion that we can, leveraging the network to generate these kind of views. Whether it was AMC with the tune-in campaign with this digital series, or G.I. Joe as a trailer for Paramount Pictures, we've built a platform that can really deliver audience for that specific core male audience.
That's right. It's not just any audience. No, you guys have doubled down on this core young male audience, and you understand it so well that you can predict with some certainty what they're going to do and how they're going to behave.
Some certainty. They're a fickle audience.
Right, of course. But that's important, right? Because you hear from startup companies, I hear from startup companies all the time that tell you theoretically what they're able to do, and they're talking about capabilities. For instance, here, I'm sure at this show, we'll see many examples of new technologies. And that's great. That's a capability. but there isn't much thought beyond the capability to what it's actually going to deliver in terms of a targetable audience that can be measured. And that's a much more difficult thing for a startup to estimate. What you seem to have figured out is how to reach and retain the attention of this very fickle teen audience, this young male audience.
Well, I think part of it is because our stars and our network come from the audience. So there's an authenticity and street credibility that we have as a voice of that generation, as a voice of that community, that is very real.
Right.
So there's an aspirational side also to the network. They want to be part of the network. They want to wear our hoodies and T-shirts and hats and be part of events that we put together. It's a very fanatic audience and growing. And that's the exciting thing for us. I mean, the global, the fact that we get 60% of our audience outside of the US and Canada is huge for us. And we're already showing big numbers in most of European countries, Australia, Taiwan, and South Korea, Japan. And so now the next phase in 2012, this year, is to really go deep in each country in a sense of developing local primetime programming in each country.
In the local language?
In local language.
Oh, so that's what the broad network of 4,000 contributors is about.
Yes.
You're finding people who speak to that particular language for that particular market.
And we already have them. I think now it's really a deep focus of how do we develop further. In some cases with partnerships in country with other major media partners.
Got it. And are you considering opening offices in all these places?
Well, we already have offices in London for the last 2 years, and those have been growing, but now we're looking at maybe some other countries in Europe.
I see. Right on. Good. What are the attributes of a territory before you enter into a region, like say South Korea or Australia? If you're going to go really double down on that market, what do you look for? Like, what are the attributes that make a market attractive to you?
Well, I think we look at the audience potential. We look at the type of content that's being created, and then we also look at the monetization side of things.
So if there's advertiser demand for it,
And in some countries, you want to maybe partner just because of language, partners that actually can bring marketing as well as advertising solutions. Whether they have a large scale force already in place. But we've also working very closely with YouTube and Google to actually help monetize that audience, because we're fortunate enough to be on the YouTube platform that allows us to monetize every single video view that we have on our network on a global basis.
Well, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Every single view is monetized through the YouTube
through
ads.
AdSense for video as a remnant play, or YouTube's direct sales force, as well as our own direct sales force.
Oh, so you work with all three solutions in combination.
Correct.
You have your own sales force. Are they based in New York, I suppose?
We have sales teams in Los Angeles, Seattle, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, and London.
All over. Okay.
So yeah.
Right on. Now, let's talk a little bit about the relationship with YouTube, because I think historically that has some real importance. That's really significant to me. One of the things I was so surprised by when I started speaking with Philip and his brother, Alan, his co-founder, is the decision that you made early on to focus on YouTube as the platform and not machinima.com. If you look at machinima.com, the website, you'll see that it's a promotional site. It tells you about the company. But if you want to actually watch the videos, well, then you click through and you're taken to the YouTube channel. Tell me about that decision. When did you make the decision to focus on YouTube as the platform so that you would be free to focus on content?
Well, that was pretty much at the starting point. When we acquired machinima.com as a website, we really didn't believe that we could really generate scale by forcing an audience to go to a specific destination like a .com. We'd seen the early days of YouTube. We were following them. We thought you have to take the brand to wherever the audience is, even looking at the audience behavior. And it was the early days of Facebook, and Twitter was just about to come around the corner. So we said we need to go where the audience is, and that was the core strategy. So we were one of our earliest channel partners on YouTube, and we decided to double down and really focus on leveraging that platform because it was instantaneously global. We were allowed to monetize every video view immediately. Therefore, we didn't have to build a huge sales force initially, a direct sales force.
Oh, right.
So it was a very interesting platform. The platform itself not only provided the ability to actually distribute video, but in itself, it was a marketing platform, right? Because the ecosystem there allows you to easily share and embed and so on. So it was something that we thought could leverage, we could leverage to build scale pretty quickly.
But back in 2007 or 2008, the general thinking among venture capitalists, the companies that were financing these new video startups on the web, the thinking there was build a destination, build a platform, or license software. We have a guest here from Oyala, for instance, so companies were partnering with them to build their own video destinations. Now, by and large, many of those companies have not been able to achieve the same kind of results that you've achieved. I'd say you're singular in the sense that currently you're the #2 channel on YouTube after Vivo, which is not original content, right? Vivo's licensed content from the record
music
labels.
videos, yeah.
And so for original content, you're the #1. You've got the biggest reach, the biggest audience, probably the biggest monetization as well.
Well, Vivo does pretty well.
Of course, no, after Vivo for original content. But that was not evident. I mean, back in 2008, 2007, that time frame, that was counter to all the conventional wisdom at the time, right? The conventional wisdom was build a destination, build a hub, and grow from there. And the idea of relying on somebody else to provide all the technology. Tell me about the implications of that decision. What did that free you to do?
Well, as a startup, it didn't, from a capital perspective, we didn't have to go and raise huge capital for bandwidth, for building our own technology team. We could
that was all YouTube's problem.
We could focus on the core competency, which was growing audience and developing content.
And so if there was someone in the audience right now who is considering launching a new media venture, a digital video business, what advice would you have for them to achieve great scale early?
I think YouTube is a great platform.
Still today?
I think so.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it's probably the steps to becoming an official channel partner are probably a bit more complex today than they were maybe a few years ago, just because of the initiatives that they have underway. But as you know, YouTube and Google have now put up a fund of about over $100 million in the US and are going to be doing something in Europe, I believe, to support the creation of new channels with a lot of creators, whether they exist on YouTube already or new channel partners. So that's a very exciting opportunity.
So they're really out there reaching out to companies like Machinima and maybe some of the younger startup companies and also celebrity branded channels.
And established networks, established brands out there, established content creators, because they really truly see themselves as a global platform for the emergence of these new channels. The same way you thought of broadcast with ABC, CBS, and NBC, or the BBC, RTL, whatever. And then you saw the emergence of cable, and new brands were born there. New channels were born there, like ESPN, NMTV, CNN. There's a new sort of generation of channels, like Vivo, ourselves, and so on, and other channels that are born out of these new platforms like YouTube.
And so would you say then that YouTube and Google are building an alternate universe to cable TV? They're building their own original content that runs across their network?
I think they possibly might be thinking that.
They possibly, very, very politically astute response there, but it seems quite clear, right? They're basically building content that is, or they're helping grow, not necessarily financing all of it, but they're in some cases they're
incentivizing and subsidizing, yes.
Giving massive incentive to companies to come in and create original programming, but unlike television, it's already pre-cleared to run everywhere that YouTube runs. It's
Correct.
already perfectly aligned with Google's advertising strategy. So there's no existing conflicts whatsoever. And no doubt it'll end up on Google TV as they roll that out later this year, the sort of second iteration of Google TV. Because as you know, one of the biggest issues with rolling out traditional television programming on the web is that the content's not cleared. Frankly, some of the companies don't even have the rights to offer for every single territory. So you end up with this massive geo-blocking headache. But in your case, actually, it's a tremendous advantage because your content's designed from the outset to run across every platform where YouTube and Google happen to be.
And YouTube also, for example, they, not only are they going to be on Google TV, of course, naturally, because of the ownership by Google, but also they've made, they're already on the Xbox platform. So they're looking at a variety of different distribution
everywhere.
environments.
Even Apple. I mean, there's certainly a lot of strategic tension at the top of those companies between Google and Apple. But you'll find a YouTube icon on just about every Apple device.
And actually has been a huge thing for us on a mobile platform because mobile generates about close to 400 million video views a month for us today, and a lot of them are through the YouTube app on the iOS. We're also on Android and Windows Mobile 7. So wherever the audience is, or Samsung, with their app, wherever the audience is, we're going to be there with the brand, and YouTube is there usually first. So in a way, we already have been seeded already in that particular platform.
Cool. So you said last year was a year of experimentation, developing new formats, substantially greater budgets for programming. What's ahead? What's going to happen this year, 2012?
Well, as you saw by the sort of teaser reel, we are launching a Machinima Prime channel.
Yes.
In the sense, what you think of the kind of programming you would see on prime time between 8 and 11 p.m. on a traditional network. So sci-fi, action, comedy, animation, like a comedy block like you would see on Comedy Central with Adult Swim. A show like Receiver, which looks like a sort of an X-Files type of show. That was the one that was sponsored by Motorola. So as we looked at 2012, we're going to be expanding the programming. We were part of the one of the channels that received the grant from YouTube, as well as our own investments into developing more and more programming for that core audience. So we're going to be actually be part of an upfront in May with YouTube and Vivo and a few other channels.
This is a really big deal. So I've been hearing a lot of buzz about this. As you probably are aware, the upfront that happens every year in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles is where traditionally the broadcast networks would go drum up business and get support from advertisers for their fall season. And they spend lavishly to do these upfront presentations. In more recent years, the cable companies, the big cable companies, have started to do their own version of an upfront, basically mimicking television, broadcast TV, and in a way sending the signal that, hey, we're reaching the same size of audience now, and we're starting to get the same size numbers in cable television that broadcasters used to get. And so now this year, YouTube has organized their own upfront for internet channels. And I think the numbers are going to astonish people who aren't familiar with the size and scope of the audience that YouTube reaches. Today, YouTube serves half the video on the internet. And they're, in terms of the uploads, it's really quite extraordinary. People are uploading an hour of video every second to YouTube, which is quite amazing. The number of views now is extraordinary as well. They're serving, I think, 4.5 billion videos a year, if I'm not mistaken.
A day, I think.
Or is it a day or a month or something? Yes, it's a staggering number. So the scope and reach for YouTube, take any broadcast statistic from any country in the world and add a 0 or 2 at the end of that number, and you're starting to approximate the size and reach of the YouTube audience. We have time for questions, and if there are any, we'll take a peek out here. Great, sir.
Hello, Philip Bernstein. YouTube has a great reach, but also Facebook has one too. What about Facebook? Don't you consider to provide your content on a Facebook application with some monetization on it?
Well, we are looking at all platforms, and clearly, Facebook is an amazing platform. This year we're going to be paying a lot of attention to that, as well as, of course, expanding our mobile reach. Like I said, we're doing about 400 million video views a month on mobile, but clearly the iPad is taking off. It's going to be a very important delivery device, especially for our audience, where they game on the iPad, as well as want to digest content, video content there. Facebook, in terms of video, is an interesting sort of animal. We really try to look at each platform for what it really can do for our community and our audience. So we're just sort of exploring that. We haven't done anything on Facebook. We have about 1.5 million followers right now, but that number will grow this year because of the investment and focus from our side. But yes, it's a very important platform for us.
Cool. Question over here.
I was going to ask, what patterns are you seeing in scheduling? Are people releasing one episode a week when they have a new show, or are they releasing all at the same time to binge, or a mixture? How is that changing?
That's a great question. We were sort of, I think, like everybody else, operating under the assumption initially that, hey, it's the web, 2 to 5 minutes, episodes that the most people can digest. What's interesting is as we're releasing our shows, which we're doing on a weekly basis, a lot of comments come back with, we want to see more. And even if we're releasing a series like Bite Me or Receiver that is about an average about 10 to 11 minutes per episode, we look at doing series that are a minimum of at least 90 to 120 minutes, because we can also snap them together to be made available as a movie or a download. The comments are, we want to see more, and we want to see more now. So what seems to be happening is that the traditional television viewing experience of, I want to watch a 24, 48-minute episode of something, is starting to happen online too. And so we're looking at models where we can release a series on a weekly basis, or it potentially could be made available immediately for you to consume, potentially advertise supported, or maybe as a pay-for-download model or a subscription model.
Super. Well, I want to thank you very much, Philip, for joining us today.
Sure,
this has been a fun conversation. Philip and I will be around later today. You can meet us out in the Connecting Lounge. This afternoon, I'll be back. I have an interesting combination, a panel consisting of a representative from Bravo Television and Social Game Universe. We'll be talking about audience engagement. And tomorrow afternoon, I'll be here to talk to the founders of Maker Studios, which is another one of the original channels that's popped up in Los Angeles. And so look forward to some more lively conversation. Thank you very kindly for joining us. Thanks for making the trip. Have a good mid-TV.